I'd like to introduce to you today our speaker today, Chester Santos. Chester is the winner of 2008 USA National Memory Championship. He's been giving memory workshops in the Bay Area, and I attended one of them. I used to think that memorizing things is so boring, and it might even stifle my creativity. However, after attending the workshop, I realized that it would actually improve my creativity because it uses both my left brain and right brain, plus more. And I'll let Chester explain to you some more. Please welcome Chester Santos.
Thank you for the introduction, Petula. Thanks everyone for having me here today. I like to start all of my presentations out with a couple of quick demonstrations. I tried to meet people as they walked in, although it was harder because a lot of people just flooded in right after 12. More difficult than I'm used to. If you remember meeting me, if I shook your hand, gave you my name, and you gave me your name, if you remember that happening, please stand up. Okay, this might be tough. Might be a little tough. We'll see how I do. If I manage to give your name correctly from memory, please have a seat. So Jared, Antonio, Kay, Alex, Jeannie, Shao, Hendrik, Aaron. Okay, so far so good. Okay, okay. Tiffany.
No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, you did scare me. Nick. Oh, cover your name tag. Cover your name tag. Cover your badge. Charles. Laura. Philippe. Tracy. Surgeon. Alex. Yvonne, Praveen, Kevin, Ben, Triv, Alex, Grant, Zen, Jade, Andre, Evan, Yvonne. I memorized it as Evan, sorry, my bad. Yvonne. Beta, Olia. Correct? Thank you. It's really, that's just come with training. I will do one more demonstration here with numbers. So Antonio, can you give me a single digit from 0 through 9? 7? Okay. So hopefully everyone can see that. It has to be on this side because I think the live stream is only picking up this area. That's why I put it over here. Okay, so a single digit from 0 through 9? 2. 2? A single digit from 0 through 9.
4.
4. Right there.
0.
0.
9.
9.
3.
3.
4.
4.
6.
6.
1. 1.
7.
3.
8.
8. 2. 5,
9,
9,
8,
8,
5,
5,
4,
4,
8,
8,
5,
another 5. Okay.
7,
7,
6,
6,
1,
1, 3, 'Thank you. Where are we at? Okay. 2, maybe we were, is this a lot of numbers? You want to do, well, I guess we can do some. Go ahead.
0,
2,
2. Okay. Is this a lot of numbers? Or does it look like a lot of numbers? Okay. Thank you. Let's see if I remember that. All right, let me know if I make any mistakes. Let me know if I make any mistakes here. I think it's going to be 724,093, 461, 173, 826, 598, 548, 557, 613, and 203. Was it right? Let me attempt to repeat that number sequence backwards. Okay, let's see if I can do it. So this would be going from right to left, bottom to top. Backwards, that number sequence I believe is 302, 316, 755, 845, 895, 628, 371, 164, 390, and then it was 427 backwards, right? Is that right? Thank you. Just a couple of quick demonstrations there to show you what's possible with just a little bit of memory training. So in winning the United States National Memory Championship, I actually memorized the exact order of a shuffled deck of playing cards, all 52 cards in order in less than 2 minutes. I memorized a 132-digit sequence of computer-generated random digits forwards and backwards in about 5 minutes. I represented the United States in the World Memory Championship, where I memorized a 1,000-digit sequence, and 10 separate shuffled decks of playing cards in 1 hour. I actually started an episode of PBS's Nova Science. That particular episode was entitled How Smart Can We Get? And during that episode, I actually demonstrated on a stage in New York City. In 2012 is when I did it. I demonstrated perfect recall of the entire United States Congress, both the House and the Senate, everyone's first name, last name, state, district number, political party, all congressional committees on which they serve, special positions held within those committees and held within Congress in general. It was more than 4,000 pieces of data that I had to have random access to in my head like a computer. I realize that those all seem like extraordinary feats of memory, but in fact, it's all just come with training with techniques that make the most efficient use of the brain to encode information so that it makes it much easier to retrieve that information when you need it later on. Really, everyone sitting in this room today is capable of doing absolutely extraordinary things with your memory. You just need to learn the right techniques and practice a little bit. My presentation will be interactive today. I will have you go through some exercises that may seem a bit silly or unusual at certain points, but just bear with me because I promise you that what I ask you to do is going to help you with your memory. It's going to make it much easier for you to remember things. So everyone, please close your eyes at this point. We will start with a warm-up visualization exercise here. You're simply going to do your best to visualize what I described to you. Just do your best to see what I described to you happening in your mind. I want for you to picture yourself in your current residence, wherever you're currently living. You are in the living room area of your residence, and you see there, standing behind podiums, looking as if they are about to engage in a debate, you see Barack Obama and Mitt Romney. You thought the debates were long over in 2012, but another one's actually about to happen in the middle of your living room. And although this strikes you as pretty unusual, rather than ask any questions, you decide to simply hang back and observe what's going on. So they begin to debate there. Just watch this unfold. You see that the debate is becoming more and more heated between the two politicians, and at one point, you can see Romney become very upset. He's visibly upset at something that Obama says, so he reaches behind his podium to pull out a pie. He takes this pie and he throws it at Obama, and it hits Obama square in the face. Obama has pie splattered all over his face. Obama is not happy about this at all. So he reaches behind his podium now, believe it or not, to also pull out a pie. He takes it, he throws it at Romney, and it hits Romney square in the face. What started out as a debate has at this point turned into a full-blown pie fight, and the politicians are continuously throwing pies at each other. Pie is flying everywhere. Just see this in your mind to the best of your ability. The imagery doesn't need to be crystal clear, but just see it as best you can. You are, at this point, primarily experiencing visual images. You're seeing imagery running through your mind. What I'd like you to do now is attempt to involve even more senses as you experience this scenario happening in your mind. Imagine that you can not only see it happening, imagine that you can hear it happening as well. Imagine that you can hear that pie flying through the air. You can hear the pie as it splatters on the politicians. Imagine now that you can even smell the pie. Just do your best to imagine what that pie might smell like. Take it a step further now. Imagine that you walk up to one of the politicians and you actually take some of the pie off of their face. You feel it in your hands. Maybe it feels sort of sticky. Go ahead now and even put some of that pie in your mouth and taste the pie. Hopefully you are tasting some pie there that's pretty good, although some people tell me it tastes like politician at this point. Okay, go ahead and open up your eyes, everyone. Pretty easy, right? Pretty easy exercise to complete. Some people find that to be a fun exercise. But what does it have to do with improving your memory? In fact, it has a lot to do with it. If you were able to complete that simple exercise, and I'm sure you all were, then you actually have the ability to remember anything at all that you would ever want to remember quickly, easily, and with tremendous accuracy. Here are some reasons why. Reason number one, I had you there exercise your visualization ability. And your visual memory is incredibly powerful. An example that I often cite in my speeches and presentations that I now give all over the world is a situation that we've all experienced at some point in our life where you may see someone that you could have met years ago. You could have met them years in the past. Oftentimes, as soon as you see that person's face, you remember their face, you know that you've met them somewhere before, but no matter how hard you try, you can't seem to remember the name. That is a very common experience. Something else that happens to us pretty often, let's say you go to a party and you're at the party with one of your friends accompanies you to the party, and you're both there meeting a lot of new people while mingling. 2 weeks after the party, your friend that attended with you is describing someone to you that you both met at the party. Your friend says, you know, that attorney that we met, he's also a member of the tennis club. Given that little bit of description, a lot of times you both can easily pull up a picture in your mind of that guy's face, but a lot of times neither one of you can remember what the name was, right? That is also a very common experience. Why do those two things that I just described, why do they happen to us so often? It's because when we are meeting people, we actually see their face with our eyes, right? The face is recorded into our visual memory, but at no point are we seeing the name. That's why it's much more difficult to remember names. Toward the end of my presentation today, I'm going to talk to you about how you can picture names, how you can see them in your mind, so that you're better able to remember them. That's how a lot of times I will open presentations with naming hundreds of people in an audience after hearing each name one time. It's because I'm picturing the names and seeing them in my mind. I'll talk about that later, but for now, note the power of your visual memory. If you can see it, you can remember it, okay? Second thing to take away from the exercise with Romney and Obama is that I had you involve additional senses from there. As you involve more and more senses in the encoding process when trying to commit information to memory, you're actually activating more and more areas of your brain. And you're building more and more connections in your mind to the information, so it makes it much easier to retrieve it when you need it later on. When I starred in that episode of Nova Science, I performed some pretty crazy feats of memory. And then I trained the host of the show, David Pogue, who is also a New York Times tech columnist and CBS News correspondent. You guys have probably all heard of David Pogue, I would imagine, in the tech industry. I trained him in ways to improve his memory, and he was soon performing extraordinary feats of memory as well. Afterwards, some neuroscientists appeared on the show, and they talked about how it was I was able to pull off those feats of memory and how David Pogue was able to do it with just a little bit of training. And they confirmed that it's because with these memory techniques that I've mastered over the years and that you'll learn a little bit about today, we are actually recruiting extra areas of our brain to help us with our memory. Areas of the brain that are not normally involved with memory, we are recruiting those extra areas to help us, so it makes it much easier to remember anything that you would want to remember. And part of this is learning to utilize more senses during the encoding process to activate these extra areas of your brain. Third and final thing to take away from the exercise with Romney and Obama is that I had you imagine something happening that is strange, unusual, out of the ordinary. You would not expect to see that happening, right, in the middle of your living room. And I had you do that because I want you to learn to take advantage of the psychological aspect to your memory. And that is, we tend to remember things with little to no effort, things that happen that catch us by surprise, that are strange, unusual, extraordinary in some way, right? If this were to actually happen right now at this moment, if an elephant were to come crashing through the back door there right now, through that doorway, if it came crashing into this room and it started spraying water all over everyone in here with its trunk, you might remember that for the rest of your life and always tell that story. And you wouldn't have to do anything to commit that to memory. It would just be stuck there, right? Scientists don't even fully understand how this works in the brain, how some things will just instantly transfer into your long-term memory. However, we do understand that there is this aspect to our memory and that our minds do work in this way. And we can actually take advantage of that and apply it to things that would be useful for us to remember, things that would help us out in school, in our career, and in our personal life. When you combine those three principles, visualization, utilizing additional senses from there, and then you also use your creativity and your imagination to make what you are seeing and experiencing crazy, unusual, extraordinary. When you combine those three principles, it becomes very easy to remember anything at all that you would ever want to remember. We are now going to put this into practice. Without writing anything down, without writing this down, you are all going to commit to memory the following random list of words. Okay? The word list is monkey, iron, rope, kite, house, paper, shoe, worm, envelope, pencil, river, rock, tree, cheese, and quarter. Okay, that's the random list of words. Grant, did you want to give it a try there? Was that a look of confidence you were giving me? Actually, I was just kidding. I wouldn't expect you to have that committed to memory yet. Oftentimes when I recite that list of words, I get looks from people in the audience. People are looking at me as if, come on, man, are you serious? Like, there's no way I'm going to be able to remember that, not unless you give me a lot of time to do it. But in fact, you are all going to have that entire list of words committed to memory, forwards and backwards, in just 3 to 4 minutes. And even next week, without any further review, even next week, you will still know it forwards and backwards. How you are going to do this is, once again, you will simply listen to what I described to you, and you will see and experience it happening in your mind, just as you did with the opening exercise with the politicians. If you come at this more as a fun exercise in using your creativity and your imagination, rather than coming at this as a difficult memory exercise, then the remembering is actually going to come very easily and very naturally. So just have fun with this, okay? The first word was monkey. So I want for you all to see a monkey in your mind, okay? This monkey is dancing around. It's making monkey noises. Whatever a monkey would sound like. I'm working on the monkey impression. One day it'll be decent. But for now, the point here is to see and experience this monkey, okay? The monkey now picks up a giant iron, because that was the second word. So I want for you to see this monkey dancing around with the iron. And the iron starts to fall, but a rope attaches itself to the iron. And maybe you feel the rope, maybe it feels sort of rough. You look up the rope and you see that the other end of the rope is attached to a kite. And the kite is flying around in the air, it's flying around in the air. Maybe you reach up to try and touch that kite, but it's just out of your reach. Kite was the next word. This kite, you see now, crashes in to the side of a house. Really see it smash into the side of a house, because the next word was house. Picture that. This house is completely covered in paper. It's completely covered in paper. A shoe appears out of nowhere now, and it starts to walk all over that paper. Maybe it's messing up the paper as it's walking on it, that shoe. This shoe smells pretty badly, so you decide to investigate and see why. You look inside of the shoe and you see a little worm crawling around inside of that shoe. Really see that worm. The worm jumps out of the shoe and into an envelope. Really see it go into the envelope. A pencil appears out of nowhere now, and it starts to write all over the envelope. See that pencil frantically writing all over the envelope, pencil. The pencil now jumps into a river, and there's a huge splash for some reason when that little pencil hits the river. The river, you notice, is crashing up against a rock. It's crashing up against a rock. The rock flies out of the river and into a tree. Really see it smash into the tree. And this tree, for some strange reason, is growing cheese. I bet you've never seen that one before. The tree is growing cheese. And out of each piece of cheese shoots a quarter. A quarter shoots out of each piece of cheese. The last word was quarter. I am going to go through this again, but very quickly this time, and your job is to simply replay through this story that you've created in your mind, okay? So we had the monkey was dancing around with an iron, the rope attached itself, the other end of the rope was attached to the kite crashed into the house was covered in paper, the shoe walked all over the paper, inside of the shoe was the worm jumped into the envelope, the pencil wrote on the envelope, the pencil jumped into the river was crashing into the rock flew into the tree was growing cheese, and out of each piece of cheese shot a quarter. So you should be able now to recite to me that entire random list of words by simply going through the story in your mind and recalling each major object that you encounter. We're going to do this as a group. I want for you all to yell out these random words, yell them out loud on my cue, starting with the first word, which was monkey,
iron, rope, kite, house, paper, shoe, worm, envelope, pencil, river, rock, tree, cheese, quarter.
Great job. Excellent. Give yourselves a round of applause. Give yourselves a round of applause. Nice job there. A volunteer from the audience to stand up and recite those to me. All of them. Antonio, go ahead.
Monkey, iron, rope, kite, house, paper, shoe, worm, envelope, paper, river, rock, tree, cheese, quarter.
So after envelope, what's after envelope?
Pencil.
You got it. Good job. Great job. Great job. Great job. Excellent. Great job. Somebody's anxious to recite these backwards, I know. Aaron, go ahead.
Quarter, cheese, tree, rock, river, pencil, envelope, worm, shoe, paper, house, kite, rope, iron, monkey.
Great job. Give a round of applause. Nice job. Nice job. Great job. So that technique that you've learned there is called the story method. It is a very powerful way to go about committing to memory random pieces of information. It's just one of many tools that memory champions use in order to perform extraordinary feats of memory. Again, it's just about using the right technique and practicing a little bit with those techniques. That's how we're able to pull off these extraordinary memory feats. If you practice with the story method and similar techniques, over time you will notice many benefits. Benefit number one, your memory is going to improve over time, but this is only assuming that after this presentation today you go out there and you start to use these types of techniques to force yourself to commit more and more things to memory and recall them. If you do that, your memory is going to get better because the brain is very trainable. Our brains are very trainable. The more you force your brain to perform a particular function over and over again, the more it signals to your brain that that's something important for you to be able to do, so it will make itself better at doing it, okay? The opposite, however, is also true. If you never have your brain perform a particular function, you're basically signaling to your brain that that's something not too important for you to be able to do, so it makes sense that you will start to lose that ability over time. We are all born with extraordinary memory ability. We are born with our brains like sponges. We need this ability to quickly acquire and learn new information in order to be able to survive. We reinforce throughout all of our early years that learning and memory is important by engaging in schooling, in preschool, kindergarten, elementary school, junior high, high school, college, grad school for some people. Throughout all of those years, you were constantly challenged to learn tons of information from a wide variety of areas. You're constantly tested on your recall of that information for quizzes, exams, to write papers. They say when you first start a new job, it's a lot of the same thing. You have to learn a lot of new things and recall them in order to do your job properly. But then what happens is we tend to enter this 20, 30 plus year period where for the most part, you just start to do the same things day in and day out. Everything just becomes a routine. You are no longer nearly as challenged to learn as much and recall as much as you were earlier in life. The bottom line is we tend to use our memory much less later in life than we do earlier in life. So this is a large part of the reason why your memory ability starts to decline as you get older. It's because as you're aging, you are separating yourself more and more from those early years where you were constantly using your memory. The good aspect to this, the positive aspect, is that if you make it a point to exercise your memory, actually use it, it can stay strong and actually even get better, really, at any age. Some people don't believe me when I tell them this. They're stuck on this idea that someone later in years is going to have a memory worse than someone earlier in years. They think that's just the way it is. So I like to talk about when I competed in the World Memory Championship. So I represented the United States in the World Memory Championship in the Middle East in 2008. I competed against the guy when I represented the U.S. I competed against the guy from Malaysia who at the time was in his late 60s, so more than 30 years older than me, and he absolutely destroyed me in the World Memory Championship. I was nowhere close to that guy. He actually memorized an entire dictionary, and they would call out any page number in the dictionary and the row number, and within a few seconds, he could tell you the word there and its definition. He could also do the reverse. If you said chair, he would think about it for a few seconds, say, oh, chair, I think that's on page 875, row 3, and he was right every single time. His name is Dr. Yip Sway Choi. He's known as the Walking Dictionary. He's from Malaysia. But it just goes to show that really you can have a razor-sharp memory ability really at any age, even after a retirement age, 65, usually the age people retire, you can still have awesome memory ability, but he's always working on his memory. He's constantly training it. That's why it stays very sharp. So memory ability, one benefit. You are also going to improve your visualization ability with this type of training. You will notice that you are going to be able to create these images in your mind much more quickly, and you will be able to see the imagery in your mind much more clearly. Visualization ability has been linked to more than just memory. In fact, it's been linked to overall intelligence. If you can visualize the complex relationships between things, it helps to give you a better understanding. Visualization ability is something very important to develop. You will develop it with this type of training. This is also great exercise in creativity and imagination, coming up with these creative and imaginative stories. In addition, this is a very good workout for your brain, and all of the research is showing that we should try to exercise our brains as much as possible throughout our lifetimes. The research is showing that if you are destined to develop Alzheimer's or another form of dementia down the road, with current research they have no clue how to prevent that from happening, but what they do believe is that by engaging in rigorous brain exercise, you can build up what they're calling a cognitive reserve. So that's the terminology that you would find in the research, cognitive reserve. But basically what this means is building up extra brain muscle. And if you do develop Alzheimer's or another form of dementia down the road, the disease will first have to eat away at that extra brain muscle before it starts to affect your everyday life. So what they're saying is you can gain more years of mental clarity that you would not have had otherwise without this reserve. Okay, so that's another benefit of this type of training. In terms of applications, in just a very short presentation like this, random words is the easiest thing to go with because it just gives you an idea of how this all works and you get a sense of how powerful these techniques really are. But I want to impress upon you the fact that really these memory techniques can be applied to committing to memory anything at all that you would want to remember. You can easily give a speech or presentation from memory without looking at notes. You can commit to memory important business-related facts and figures. If you can meet with clients or get up in front of your colleagues and give a presentation, all from memory with everything at your mental fingertips, you are much more impressive and you seem like much more of an expert in your particular field as opposed to someone that's just reading the PowerPoints the whole time or just reading their notes the whole time. In addition, the bottom line is that we perceive people with great memory ability as being more intelligent. That's the perception. So you can help to give off that perception with memory skills. So that's another benefit. You can build up a vocabulary in a foreign language very quickly and easily using these types of memory techniques. Any type of exam that involves the memorization of a lot of terminology, concepts, you can easily ace those types of exams with these memory techniques. There are really limitless applications, but I'm going to close my presentation today with my most popular topic, and that is remembering names and faces, because this is applicable really in any career and definitely applicable to everyone's personal life. I like to quote the famous book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. In that book, it was written that the sweetest sound to a person in any language is the sound of their own name, and also that everyone's favorite subject is themselves. So, in fact, by remembering people's names and other things about them, you can build better business and personal relationships. The most important thing of all to remember is the person's name. It's about building a rapport with someone. If you meet someone at an event and the next time you see him, you can say, "Hey, John, how are you? How is your wife, Nancy? How was your last round of golf?" What that person is feeling, even if it may be on a subconscious level, is that they must be pretty important to you if you can remember their name and those things about them. And that in turn it makes them want to get to know you better, okay? So this strengthens relationships. The most important thing is the name. The opposite is also true. If you're not remembering people's names, or maybe even worse, you're calling them by the wrong name, what they are feeling is that they must not be very important to you, and this can be very detrimental to business and personal relationships. So how do you get better at doing this? 4 simple steps first, independent of memory techniques, and then I'll get into a visual-based memory technique after that. Step number 1, from this day forward, get into the habit whenever you are introduced to someone, make it a point to repeat the name right away and shake the hand if you can. So if you're introduced to someone named Jared, shake his hand. "Nice to meet you, Jared. Pleased to meet you, Jared." Just get into that habit. That forces you to pay attention for at least 1 to 2 seconds in order for you to be able to repeat the name. A lot of times we're not remembering people's names because when they're giving us their name, we're just not paying any attention to begin with, right? So get into that habit, repeat the name, shake the hand. Eventually it will just become second nature to you. Step number 2, early on in your interaction with the person, ask them a question using their name. So, Jared, how long have you been with Google? Jared, how long have you known Chester? How do you know Chester, Jared, right? Use the name early on in your interaction with the person. That's really going to help that name to stick much better in your mind and prevent it from just going in one ear and out the other ear. Step number 3, take a few seconds or less to think of a connection between the name and anything at all that you already know. And I would just go with the first thing that pops in your head. Today it was Jared from Subway. That's the first, I'm sorry. That's the first thing that popped into my head today.
I usually use the jewelry store, but that's okay.
Okay, whatever, just think of a connection between the person's name and anything at all that you already know. It could even actually be that you just have a friend or family member that also has that same name. It's really going to help you to remember that name much better. Step number 4, whenever you leave the party, the meeting, whatever type of function it may be, make it a point to say goodbye to people using their name. Great meeting you, hope to see you again sometime, Jared. Something like that. That's going to go a long way towards helping you remember those names the next time you see people. Those 4 steps alone are going to help you a lot in terms of remembering names. If you combine them with a visual-based technique that I'll now briefly go over, you will definitely be remembering more names than you ever have before. You might not be 100%, even I'm not 100%, but if you can remember 80+% of the people that you're meeting, this is really going to pay huge dividends in your career and in your personal life. Visual-based technique, when you are introduced to someone, ask yourself, how does this person in some way, anyway, look unique to you? It could be a particular facial feature, or it could be something about their look overall. And you want to exaggerate that in your mind, whatever it may be. Next, you will use your creativity and imagination to come up with an image that will in some way remind you of the name, and you will mentally link that image to the unique thing about the person, okay? A lot of times these might not be flattering things. You're not going to be telling people how you're remembering their name, okay? This is all going on inside of your head. They're not going to know what you're thinking. They're just going to know that you're able to call them by their name, and they will really appreciate that fact. I will quickly give you an example of how this works. I will give you the example that I gave on CNN. So I was interviewed on CNN's American Morning and asked to give tips for their viewers on how to better remember names. They seem to find this example pretty humorous. No offense to anyone in here named John. I didn't meet anyone named John yet, but so it obviously doesn't apply to you because I haven't even met you. But I said that if I meet a particular John, and this particular John that I'm meeting has ears that to me look like they're on the large side, I would exaggerate those as being gigantic Dumbo-like ears swinging from the side of his head. And since the name's John, I might put a toilet bowl flushing in each ear, as in going to the John. The news anchors, they couldn't stop laughing, and then that clip also made it on VH1's Best Week Ever afterward. If you take 5 seconds to picture an image like that, it's really going to stick very well in your mind. The next time you see the guy, instantly you're going to know that his name is John, okay? I know it sounds a little unusual, but it's very powerful, and anyone can get very good at doing this with just a little bit of practice.